Welcome to another episode of The Brandon Lowe Show with Ryan Pritt. A fresh take on sports by two guys who think they're right even when they're wrong, which is a lot. Sports, movies, music, and, well, other stuff. So sit back, relax, turn it up, and join the journey into the unknown and maybe have a laugh or two. Here's your hosts, Brandon Lowe and Ryan Pritt.
All right, welcome into the Brandon Lowe Show with Ryan Pritt here on HD Sports and also Video Productions, being brought to you by the Tent Guy over Nitro. That's off 25 Michigan Avenue, quarter mile from the St. Albans Nitro Bridge. Give John Wheeler over there a call, 304-380-2935. I'm Brandon Lowe. This is a special Pick'em edition, Zoom edition of the Brandon Lowe Show with Ryan Pritt. We got Jack Withrow, the beautiful Jack Withrow. We got Ryan Pritt as well, and special guest picker, as we're going to try to do every week. WSAZ Sports Director Keith Morehouse joins us on the show. So, Keith, appreciate you joining us, man. Excited to have you back on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I watch your stuff. You guys look like you have a lot of fun, so I'm ready to jump in. See if we can have a good time.
That's probably the most.
Keith is just being nice.
Yeah, that was the most accurate description of our show I've ever heard. You guys have fun.
Keith is one of the good guys in the business. I've always respected you. Every time you've greeted me or anytime I've had you on the show, you've been nothing but gracious with your time. I was telling the wife, I remember the first time I talked to you to have you as a guest whenever I was first on my radio show in Charleston. Mm-hmm. And we had probably like a 30-minute discussion of just like my background, and you were just so intrigued by like me and starting my career. And I really appreciate you, as always, my friend, coming on with your time. Anybody that spent time in this business knows what your name means in this state. And I just appreciate you taking the time tonight to talk to us.
Man, that's kind of you to say. And, it is a small state and everybody in the media kind of knows each other. But everybody, one of the great things about doing that in this state is, you get to pump up a lot of great athletes and people that deserve it. And, that's the reason why we do what we do. So that makes it fun. And, for you and Ryan and Jack to also do that every week and, just kind of get the word out on great players, great athletes, great programs. It's fun. That's what makes sports fun. Sometimes we overthink it. It doesn't have to be overthought. We just do what you guys do all the time. So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. I wore this hat for Ryan because he hates flat bill hats. So I wore this hat just for him.
Are those back or did you already have that?
It's in my office. So like my son likes this hat because he's cool and he's 12. Yeah. So I wore it because this isn't for me. So let's take that off. But I
was gonna say you look just as dumb in it as everyone else, man. So congrats on that.
No, I saw it in the office. I was like, man, I'm gonna make a grand entrance with Ryan. And it was funny because it went to his face when it zoomed in. I could see the look in his eyes. He was like, yeah, that's not happening. So
it hurts.
There you go. Yeah. So
everything old is new again, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So hey, yeah, I did that for Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hey, Keith, before we start picking and stuff, why don't you tell us where you heading Friday night this week, man? What do you got on the docket?
Well, Ryan, the funny part is not funny, but we have let's just say we have added emphasis to our Football Friday night. We have more time. We do more games. And so, honestly, I don't have time. I go back. I could take a little quick dinner break, and we send the other night we had 15 games on from, West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. And we're doing a team of the week and a play, all the stuff that we've kind of added to the menu, if you will. So I just want to make sure everything goes off smoothly. So we got to get all the the graphics typed in correctly with logos, and so that's a considerable amount of work. But I tell you guys know this in the business. I tell everybody they all the people that cover news and they do elections. Well, they do that every couple of years, and they go, man, that's a big deal. I said, we do that every Friday night season. So, that's old hat. But so, yeah, I'm hanging around, and we got like 9 photographers, I think we sent out the other day. So everybody's, all hands on deck kind of thing.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, good.
All right. So we're gonna start with our high school pick 'em. So we're gonna split this up. So we got what, Ryan? We got 10 high school, 10 college.
10 and
right?
10, man. We're going to do 10 and 10 every week. Last week, of course, was week 0, and the college slate just wasn't there for 10 and 10. But we're going to do 10 and 10 every week.
And Ryan and I went 10 for 10 as well. Just speaking of that.
We went 10 and 10.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 10 and 10. Yeah.
No,
10 and 10.
Yeah. Jack Withrow taking the week 1 lead there.
Jack did, because you all kept this stuff up. I don't even know if I want to hear how I did. That's for sure. Oh, Lord.
Well, you as a guest picker, you're up against 11 and 9. That's the Mark Cassidy Wood set last week.
Oh, she did? Okay.
We're going to do like a season-long guest picker standings, and maybe we'll send you Brandon's flat bill hat if you win. Maybe
there you go. I'll display it proudly.
There you go.
Although that's awesome because this is it's Hot Rod Hundley and Jerry West up there in the Raptors.
Oh no, that is cool. The numbers I see.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so Ryan, you're going to be our Reese Davis with this because you have the games in front of you.
I did my research this afternoon. Yeah, and so what we'll do is I'll introduce the games and we'll go. You guys are in orders from Jack to Keith to Brandon. You guys go in that order, and then I'll finish it at the end.
Okay.
And so without further ado, you guys want to get started?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Let's go, man. Starting right where I'm going to be Friday night after a long trip back from Pittsburgh Friday morning. Ashland Paul Blazer visiting George Washington on Friday night. This has been a good series, man. Started in 2012. GW owns a 5-4 series lead. Been really competitive game, the last 10 years. So, Jack, what are we feeling on the Patriots and Tomcats there?
I was impressed with George Washington last week with that victory over Cabell Midland, but I think there's a little letdown as Ashland comes in. I'm going with the Tomcats this week.
Okay.
I'm a South Charleston guy, so you know.
Oh, well, now we got
it. My son lives in South Charleston, Jack, so I feel what you're saying. It's going to be a battle of 2 really good quarterbacks, Abe Fenwick at GW and LeBryant Strader at Ashland. And Ashland lost an early game to Raceland. Raceland's really good over in Kentucky. But I feel like GW at home and Fenwick's winging it around. I'm going to go with GW in this one.
Yep. All right. Brandon.
Yeah, I agree. I was really impressed by what they did last week. I thought their defense looked really, really good. I mean, as we know, Stevie Edwards Jr. is a very good game planner, especially offensively. Jack and I can attest to that. One year when we were covering South Charleston, and he went shotgun, or actually, I think he went underneath the center. It was doing a lot of like option looks instead of shotgun looks, and just kind of throwing off that pass rush from South Charleston. He's so good at just game planning. Obviously these two know each other very well. They're on the schedule there. I'm agree with Keith. I like GW. I like the momentum from the big win last week, and I think GW gets it done at home.
Yeah, you touched on it, man. I agree. Just Steve Edwards, man. And if you watched that game last week, he did some really good things early in that game to kind of get him a lead, and you could kind of see them start to believe more and more that they could pull that off the rest of that game. And defensively, like you guys said, defensively is where I was most impressed with them. So I think their defense at home on the hill again, I think it's enough to get it done. So should be a good one, though. It's a good game.
Yeah.
Moving on to a couple 1-0 teams. A couple teams got off to some big starts last week. This should be a good one, too. Bridgeport at Morgantown. Couple perennial powers in our state. Bridgeport, of course, knocking off Buchanan Upshur 63-7 last week, and Morgantown came down and handled South Charleston 50-0. So couple teams with some big starts. Jack, who continues that start after this week?
I don't know why this game's not our game of the week.
Because I was going local stuff. It probably should be. You're right. But
I mean, Bridgeport and Morgantown, obviously Bridgeport year in and year out is very dominant. Morgantown, they were down a couple years, but man, I think they got it rolling. We talked about our doing a Super Six pick'ems, and I told you guys in one of the other shows, I like Morgantown. I like Morgantown to be at Wheeling Island Stadium, so I got to go with the Mohegans.
Keith.
All right, Jack. Someone's paying the electric bill up there on the scoreboard, right? 113 points between those two.
Yeah.
I just feel like Morgantown is going to win this one too, so I'm going Mohegans as well.
Brandon.
All right, I'm gonna ruin the Morgantown party. I understand what's the difference between Bridgeport, and this is no offense to the Bucks, and I love Zach Davis, and that was just a a tough game, obviously. And we know Bridgeport's history, where they're going for like their 30th playoff appearance or whatever it is this year. 488 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns. Every one of their points was on the ground. I think they got 25 first downs in that game. Held the Bucks to like a little over 100 off it. The reason why I'm pointing it out is, this may be considered a smaller class school or whatever. They're going against Morgantown, but they got so much brute force every single year. And I know Morgantown's got a lot of hype right now, but the interesting part about this matchup is both teams, and again, no offense to both the programs that they defeated, weren't really tested. So we don't really know what both these teams are until obviously they get on the field. And I think it's going to be a great game. I really do. But I'm taking Bridgeport in this game, boys. I'm taking them. I'm taking Bridgeport.
Never a bad thing when you can have a loner on Bridgeport, but Jack Withrow got me believing in the Mohegans, man. And I think so that way when they lose, I can just blame him. So that's what I'm gonna do. I like this. I like this because it's at home, man. I think if Jack's getting Morgantown hype down here, they've got to be feeling it up there, and that's going to be a good atmosphere down there. Obviously, no W to compete with. Nobody's got to worry about turning around and going to Milan on Saturday morning. So that crowd's going to be big. And I think at home, Morgantown ekes out a huge one and takes down Bridgeport. Close game, though.
I don't think it's a bad pick either way. Like, I think you boys have a great point. I think it's going to be a great game. And
Jack's
I agree.
probably. Yeah, Jack's
agree with
right.
Jack.
The state. That's the state game of the week.
Yeah,
probably.
for sure.
We're a little biased down here. Moving on. Riverside, a weird and tough week last week. Fell behind 28-0 and damn near rallied to get it, but fell just short, 31-28. And now they're going to head on the road for Parkersburg. Big Reds took out St. Albans 52-0 last week. So that's another team that, no offense to the Red Dragons, hasn't been tested a lot yet. Jack Withrow, will they be tested this week, you think?
I think they will, but I think the Big Reds will come out on top on this one. This could probably be a close game, but I'm going with home field advantage for Parkersburg.
Right.
I like that, Jack. I think the Warriors, I think because, like you said, they erupted there in the second half. So they'll score some points, but I don't think they can outscore Parkersburg. So I got the Big Reds too.
Yeah, I got to agree with both the boys. I think, as we've talked about on the show, Alex has done such a great job, and I think this is his most experienced team he's had since taking over the reins there. And there's been I know Ryan's been really high up on Riverside, and but unfortunately, and I did like the fight in them because Beckley, I think, was up 28-0 at halftime, I believe. Yep. And they came back and they rallied and they had an opportunity there to win that game. And there's a lot of hype there. And I feel like, I still will say this, I feel like this Riverside program, I do still think they're a playoff team. I still believe that. And Ryan's got me hyped to talk about Morgantown, but I feel like this is this team, and it might be, and we're going to get to Hoover here in a little bit. It's almost like those first game jitters. There's a little bit of hype behind you. Maybe some people are talking about, you got some upperclassmen, you let that go a little bit with Beckley, but I'm still going to take Parkersburg in this one, unfortunately.
Well, the thing about it is, if Riverside is a playoff team, they better win this one because Spring Valley, Huntington, Cabell Mill, and Hurricane, a few teams still waiting here that are pretty good. Man, I think this is a desperate Riverside team. I like the fight they showed at the end of that game last week.
I love it. I love it.
I'm not ready to get off the train yet.
Do it.
I'm taking Riverside. I'll take
it
in a close
I
game.
like it.
Hope Alex is listening. Better have a good speech ready, Alex.
He's trying to stay on Chris Wade's good side.
Well, yeah, that's the main reason I did that. Let's be honest. So, Jack, the reason that this is the game of the week, this is Winfield at Herbert Hoover, both of whom started off a little rough last week. And this has got to be, if Hoover loses this game, if they have any aspirations of winning the Cardinal, they've got to win this game, right?
Yeah.
Hoover, of course, fell last week to Scott, 34-19. I was up there. That was a kind of a remarkable game. And, of course, Winfield had a tough start against what we all think is a pretty good Hurricane team last week. That was 48-21. So, Jack Withrow, this is a huge game in the Cardinal, I think. How do you see this one going in Falling Rock?
Can Herbert Hoover stay healthy during the game? How many players did they lose to
16.
cramping? And 16 players.
Yeah.
You cannot do that and win a game. And Joey Fields talked about, the nutrition throughout the week and keeping his guys, and he's correct. You got to stay on the field, and it comes through nutrition. eating right, drinking right through the week. And do they do it this week? I think they do. Now, Winfield, their key, they've got to get up. If they can get up early and then do that offense that they run, it's methodical and they take their time. But if they get down with that offense, it's over. This ought to be a good one. I like the game of the week on this one, but I'm going the edge, Herbert Hoover.
All right, Keith.
So yeah, you mentioned the weather. So last I heard 88, I think Friday night. So it's going to be a little warm still. I know, Eddie Smolder and Chris Massey are really going to obviously do their best to turn that program into what they need it to be and want it to be at Winfield. But I'm kind of like you guys. I feel like Hoover's desperate a little bit after week 1 and they're home. So I'm going to put that in the Huskies calling it a close game.
All right, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Eddie Smolder taking over that job. You guys got to talk to him. I wasn't there that day, but we know his reputation. The thing I liked about Winfield, we kind of mentioned Riverside, was, Hurricane got up big. There was 2 quick plays that got him up 14-0. And then Winfield did fight back. So I do like the fight there. Obviously, Eddie Smolder is putting in that kind of DNA as far as being tough. Jack had a great point about Hoover during that Scott game. You got the temperature. But Joey Fields, as we know, losing back-to-back games. I don't think Winfield's there yet. I think they will be eventually. So I'm taking Hoover. But I think it's a fight. I really do.
Yeah, and, that was a weird game last week. That was 27 straight points from Scott to end that game. At one point, it was 19-7 Hoover late in the third. They were kind of in control of the game. And the floodgates kind of opened. And, I mean, we can talk Joey Fields. Obviously, this team has something to prove. He was in the locker room for an hour. And I'll tell you who's got something to prove. It's Dane Hatfield. Picked off 5 toms last week against Scott. And we all know that he's a better athlete than that. And he's a better player than that. And I think he's determined to show it this week. I like Hoover at home, too. We'll sweep with the Huskies here. Moving on to a little game that's near and dear to me, obviously. A little battle of the bridge over here. Right here in Nitro, actually, as 0-1 St. Albans comes in to take on 1-0. Let me say that again. 1-0 Nitro. Been a while since you could say that. This was a 6-3 slobber knocker last year as the Red Dragons won 6-3. Of course, we mentioned St. Albans' rough start. Nitro coming off a huge emotional win at Polka, and actually in a game where they honored the 2002 state championship game. So we'll talk about one that was that meant a lot to the kiddies. So Jack, battle of the bridge, man. Whose bridge is it this year?
I don't know if there's going to be much of a battle. Of course, St. Albans with Willie Washington taking over the coaching there. I like Willie. I've known him for a long time, and I think he'll do a good job there. But still, he's got a lot of rebuilding to do. Nitro, I was there at that game. They renamed the field Bob Limley Field before the game. So and Nitro, looked good at times. Was up ahead, let Polka come back. Polka could have won it there in the latter moments, went for 2 and the conversion failed. But I like what I saw out of Nitro, so I'm going with Nitro Wildcats in your alma mater this weekend.
Yeah, Jack, I remember those days when Bob Limley was winning championships because I'm a little older than you guys. So, but it was great to see him on the field and get honored.
Yeah, you're a lot older than us,
that's true. We might as well just stop mincing words, right?
Jack built Oaks Field.
So, it was cool to see Coach Limley get honored. Man, he deserves it. Anytime you get a field named after you, that's a huge honor. But that was a big win for Nitro. And St. Albans had some issues, so I'm going with the Wildcats as well in this one. Nitro wins it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that was huge, and we talked to Boom, and by the way, just awesome name, by the way. But I thought the adversity. I think the difference there was, and obviously Polka hasn't been without a couple kids and names, obviously, for a long time, but I think that was the biggest difference with Nitro in that game was they faced some adversity and they held off and they got the win. Because you've seen it so many years with obviously Polka has been, dominant for a couple of years, but you've seen it with St. Albans a couple of years and that you've seen some of the grit, and I think, and Boom talked to us. He's like, I like my team, and I know it's coach talk and speak or whatever, but I like what I saw out of them against Poca. Obviously, I'm going to take a team that's more tested out the gate than St. Albans, unfortunately. And I agree with Jack. I think Willie's going to get some things going there. But I like Nitro. I think it's, like, as always, anytime you're rivals, it's going to be a tough game. I remember calling a game with Larry McKay at Bristol. And I think, if I'm mistaken, I think it was a 3-0 game. I'm pretty sure it was like a couple, and it was raining, and I think there was literally 90 fumbles. And I can't remember. I think the St. Albans pulled it out or whatever, but I think it was like 3-0. I can't remember how many years ago that was. But this game is always ugly, and so expect that. But I got the kitty, so I like Nitro.
Yeah. By the way, Keith, I was at the island when Bob Limley won title number 1 in 1994.
You were.
Whoa.
You were. Yeah, I remember that.
My dad.
That's awesome.
My dad is a Sissonville grad, and if you'll remember, they beat Sissonville in that game 19-0. I went to every Sissonville football game that year, and in midget league,
awesome.
we're Eric Pinkerton's number. So there you go.
There you go.
Hey, I was on the island that night too.
Yeah, you were, weren't you?
Yeah.
Anybody want to take a shot the last time Nitro was 2-0?
Oh.
99.
Not quite
2007.
2006.
No, yeah.
06.
Yeah. That was
Nitro
close. Yeah.
That was just a wild guess.
Yeah, pretty close. Nitro went 10-2 that year. I don't think they're going 10-2, but I do think they're going 2-0. I think Nitro gets this one, and I think they win it by a couple touchdowns. I think Nitro takes it back emphatically. So there you go. Moving on, and another couple Cardinal teams here. Logan, after a big emotional win against Rival Man last week, hitting the road for Sissonville, who fought pretty hard against Chapmanville. Really, I kind of thought they acquitted themselves a little bit nicely last week. I think we all think Chapmanville is a pretty good team. So how do we see this one, Jack?
I'm going with the Wildcats on the road against Sissonville. Not much thought in this. I told you guys I really like Logan, what they built off of last year, and I think they continue the winning. How do you pick against Logan right now? They win everything down there. So I'm going with Logan.
All right.
Jack, I'm not just copying off you, but that's the way I see it.
Hey, great minds think alike, Keith.
Yeah, that's right. But watching, Logan, the highlights last week against Man in that rivalry game, they were pretty decisive. So I'm picking the Wildcats in this one too.
Not so fast.
Oh,
no, I'm kidding.
no.
I'm kidding. Sorry, Indians. No, I agree with the boys, man. Obviously Logan and Man's always close, and you can look at the last couple of years, and the Hillbillies and Logan's always tough. So, but I like what Ryan said. Sissonville did fight hard, despite, what was it, 43-26 or something like that, losing to Chapmanville. So, but I do like Logan this game.
I thought about it. I really did. I think this game's really close. I like what Sissonville did last week, and an emotional game over a rivalry is always tough to kind of recover from that following week. But
sure,
like we've talked about with this class of Logan athletes, it's just a special group, man. And like Jack said, it seems like they win at everything, and I think there's something to be said for that. So maybe Logan doesn't quite have its best, but I think it just has enough. I'll take Logan too there. Couple 1-0 teams in the Cardinal going at it over way out west in our state, right? Scott at Wayne. Scott, as we mentioned, a huge win on the road at Hoover last week, and Wayne kind of quietly took care of its rival Tulsa over there by the score of 50-14. Scott took a 35-14 win at home in this one last year. Jack, did they do it again on the road this time?
They do not. Scott, great win last week at Herbert Hoover. But I like Tom Harmon's team this year and the Wayne Pioneers.
Okay. I agree. Coach Harmon's trying to get him back, to what Wayne's always been. Tough to beat at Pioneer Field. Big win last week. I'm going to circle the wagons, go with the Pioneers as well.
Brandon.
I think it's an interesting game, just like a lot of these. We talked about Herbert Hoover with all the injuries and the cramping. But But I'm Skyhawks all the way. We know that, boys. So I think Wayne, obviously out Wayne. No one said that, but out Wayne.
Dub. Yep.
No doubt.
It's gonna be tough. But I'm gonna be the different guy out here. I'm gonna pick the Scott Skyhawks go number 2-0.
You know, I can honestly say I didn't see this one going this way with the picks, but I'm with Jack and Keith actually, and I'll tell you why. I think this Scott team has 5 seniors, 31 freshmen and sophomores. This is a team that can win this league over the next 2 years, and they're on their way. And you could see it last week. But sometimes being a young team off of a win like that, as high as they were, to turn around and hit the road against a team you beat by 3 touchdowns last year, I don't know, man. That's a tough thing to do, especially. And as Keith said, you know, Wayne is one of the toughest environments to play in all of Class AA, much less the Cardinal Conference. So, and I'll never forget that Tom Harmon stopped weed eating for us, Brandon.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
this is for you. This is for you, Coach. I'm gonna take Wayne too. I just like him at home against the young Scott team. So
I just liked his Darth Vader breathing before he's trying to calm down from coming from the hill. But you know, I'm with you, Wayne. I mean, again, this is a game that I think no pick's really that wrong in that. I mean, anything can happen, obviously.
Here's a sneaky good AAA versus AA series the last few years. Let's head south here as Princeton at 1-0 after a 53-8 win over Lincoln County last week hits the road for Bluefield, who lost a tough one against rival Graham, Virginia, and that game's always fantastic. And it was again, that was a 29-25 affair last week. This is a game Princeton won last year, 39-36. That was a huge win for them. Jack Withrow, is it 2 in a row for the Tigers?
Like you said, Bluefield, a tough loss to the G-Men of Graham last week. Bluefield was down, I believe, 27-12 at halftime and came back and lost by 2. So they showed a little fight in them. Princeton, I actually got to see them on film in their scrimmages. They look good. They've got a really good quarterback, an upperclassman. I believe he's a senior now. And they've got some talent out on the perimeter. So I'm going with Princeton here at Bluefield.
All right. Very interesting. I remember, guys, Devin Johnson used to tell me about this rivalry. He played at both schools, and, you know, he's no longer with us, as we all know. What a great guy he was. But, man, that's a big rivalry, Bluefield and Graham. So Bluefield's going to come in a little hot, and Princeton making the trip. I'm going with the Beavers in this one. They've got the pedigree, and I think it's tough for them, tough to go beat them at home.
All right, Brandon.
Yeah, Jack, how big is that boy at quarterback for Princeton?
I think he's like 6'6".
Yeah, I think we saw him, right? In person too. Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, but he's a big boy. And I like Jack, seeing him on film. Bluefield, tough. Graham, that game is always tough. So it's putting us all in a rough spot here because we don't. And Bluefield's always tough with their play. So it doesn't matter who comes to town. So, but I'm going to go with Princeton. I like the upperclassman quarterback, like Jack said. It was tough for me. This is one of the tougher ones because I don't like picking Bluefield to go 0-2. As we know, Bluefield's been very successful for years. So, but I like Princeton. I like them on the road. I think it's going to be extremely tough. I like their quarterback, though. That's what you want, right, boys? It's kind of like cliche, right? You want an upperclassman quarterback on the road, make decisions. So I like it. I'm going with Princeton.
Yeah, I don't like taking Bluefield to go into either, and that's why I'm not going to. I'm around with Keith on this one. I like Bluefield coming off of a loss, a little bit of desperation there. A game they lost last year and a really tight one, probably feel like they should have won. And Bluefield's just got too much pedigree and too much championship fortitude to go to 0-2. I think it's a close game, like you said, but I'm going to give the edge to Bluefield here.
All right.
Couple 0, this one's a little interesting for some other reasons. A couple 0-1 teams here getting together. Ripley at Buchanan Upshur. Ripley fell 49-6 to Brook at home. Buchanan Upshur, of course, as we mentioned, lost 63-7 to Bridgeport. Ripley won this one 31-13 last year. It was their only win of the season, and they're 5-0 in this series that they picked up after they left the MSAC in 2016. So Vikings have dominated this one. Jack, does that continue Friday night?
Hey, Buchanan Upshur, one of the prettiest places to play football in the state of West Virginia. at that
It is.
stadium.
Yep.
Ripley, I hate to pick against Bryce Casto's hometown. I love Bryce Casto, but I'm going with Buchanan Upshur.
Woo. All right.
I'm just doing the comparative scores here on this one because honestly, I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen either of them yet. So I'm going to go with Buchanan Upshur taking down the Vikes.
Brandon.
I'm a huge fan of Zach Davis. Ripley, I hear stinks. No offense, but I didn't mean to say it. But I heard Ripley's not great. Brooke just put it to him. And Death Valley, by the way, boys.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was in Ripley, so I'm going. And again, we don't know how good the Bucks are because Bridgeport's this Bridgeport. So I think I'm taking the Bucks, man. I'm riding the Bucks in this one.
Never saw it turning out this way, but we have a Buchanan Upshur sweep here.
Wow.
Yeah. And by the way, Jack, like Brandon said, you mentioned Buchanan Upshur being a beautiful place to play football. I got to tell you, Death Valley ain't bad either. Love that joint. But 5-0 or 0-5 in this series. Buchanan Upshur and Coach Davis get off the schneid here against the Vikings. Last one, and this one's a good one too. This could be in the state game of the week running as well. 1-0 University visiting 1-0 Parkersburg South. University took care of John Marshall in a close defensive struggle, 16-14. And Park South massively destroyed my upset special last week, winning 59-0 over Capital. This is a game the Hawks took 62-33 last year on their way to the second round of the playoffs. Jack Withrow, who you got?
I'm going with the Patriots of Parkersburg South. I think they're really good. I've heard from other coaches that this team is really good. This will be a playoff team. Plus, they're at home. They're off a Camden exit. So I'm going with Parkersburg South. This is going to be a good one. This will be tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won't have as easy a time of it, but I think the Patriots, just watching what they did offensively last week, they had their way. I mean, it was kind of pick the score. So I'm going with the Patriots as well, Jack.
Brandon.
This one's interesting. University, obviously, with John Marshall, 16-14 victory. I know University's head coach is very complimentary of John Marshall. So look out for John. That's a young team, but with a new coach, right? Like a first-year coach. So watch out for John Marshall in the next, I don't know if this year, but we'll see. But to play University tough like that, University is extremely talented every year. They're really good this year, obviously. I'm gonna take University. I don't want to overreact with the Capital victory, and I understand putting up 59 points against anybody shows how talented you are. But I like University in this one.
Yeah, I like that pick, Brandon. But Jack, after beating us by 2 games last week, I'm just going to start listening to him and everything I do. He tried to tell me last week that Parkersburg South was really good, so I'm just going to copy his answers and go.
It's not a bad one.
So plus, that's at home, and that's another really cool stadium, by the way, Jack. It's another place that I really enjoy watching high school football. So
natural turf.
Yes, yeah, which that goes a long way for me, as we've discussed. So yeah, I'll take South at home. And Brandon, that concludes the high school portion. We'll have 10 college games coming up. You want to throw it out to our sponsor real quick, Brandon?
Yeah, for sure. Want to thank our sponsor, Tent Guy over at Nitro off 25. It's right on Michigan Avenue, quarter mile from that St. Albans Nitro Bridge. Just give John Wheeler a call over there at the Tent Guy for all your tenting needs. 304-380-2935. Again, 380-2935. Includes our high school pick'em. We're going to head over to our college football pick'em. We got 10 more games there. Ryan has picked some really good ones. And obviously, week 0 is always weird because the games are, you had one really kind of decent game and the others were whatever. But now we're week 1, boys. And this is going to be interesting. And obviously, want to get Keith's take on and Marshall's opener too.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that coming up here. We'll take a break here on the Brandon Lowe Show with Ryan Pritt. All right, welcome back to the Brandon Lowe Show with Ryan Pritt here on HD Media Sports, video production, brought to you by the Tent Guy over at Nitro, right off 25 Michigan Avenue. Give them a call, 304-380-2935. Again, that's 380-2935, a quarter mile there, St. Albans Nitro Bridge. All right, we're going to talk some college football. We got some picks, but most importantly, we're going to talk some Marshall football since we have the man here, Keith Morehouse, WSAZ Sports Director. Keith, let's talk about this opener here for Marshall. What are you seeing?
Well, it's Norfolk State's FCS, so maybe it's a good thing because Marshall's going to be bringing in that new quarterback, Henry Colombi, and of course we saw him against West Virginia the last couple of years. He won the starting job. I guess he named him this past week, and of course the Herd's going to have to do without Rasheen Ali for some amount of time. So there's been a little bit of a tweak in what they're going to do with the run game. They got a Florida State transfer by the name of Kalen LeBourne. He was a 5-star kid out of high school, so he's going to get the start. And then Ethan Payne from Polka, he's going to be – everybody moves up the depth chart a little bit, so Ethan's up there. Coach Huff talked about Ethan and Toby today, was impressed with both of them. But, obviously I think Marshall's defense is pretty strong from last year, so I don't anticipate there'd be a struggle this weekend, and if there is, that'd be cause for concern. But I think, if Colombi can just be kind of a game manager, which is all you really want, to get the ball to your playmakers. And Marshall's got a lot back on defense with, Cumberlander on the defensive line. The Owen Porter kid from Spring Valley was tough, and Eli Neal and Abraham Beauplan's a linebacker who's on, the linebacker lists. So, I don't anticipate much of a problem, and maybe that's good because it ratchets up considerably the week after when they go to Notre Dame.
Absolutely. Just that, and one more thing, so much was made when they got into the Sun Belt, obviously. How excited is everyone in Huntington over this schedule that they've got, having some premier games on there and some teams that are obviously a little closer geographically too. I mean, it just seems like across the board, this is going to be a win long term, right?
Yeah, I think the league has picked up a lot of cachet, I guess, over the past few years because they've had, top 25s in Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State. Louisville's Louisiana is a really good program. I think the biggest thing, guys, is just geographically it fits better. I think Marshall's always kind of thought of themselves as a Southern-based team, and the fan bases down there are pretty passionate. And nothing against Conference USA, but when you're going out to Houston or UTEP, it's hard to identify with those schools. So in the end, I think it's a better move geographically and competitively. Of course, in soccer, West Virginia's in the league with them, as is Kentucky and South Carolina. It's a great soccer league. And then basketball, it's probably not as good as CUSA, but for Coach D'Antoni, maybe a better shot to win it and get that auto bid. So I agree with you. I think all in all, it's a good move for them and the fans and really all across the athletics department.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I agree completely with that. I know, Ryan, I've talked about that. Fans were really, the whole Big 12 thing with WU and, the travel and all that. And, but with Conference USA, the TV deal that was in place was just atrocious. You talk about the travel costs that WU's already done with too, but then you take in Marshall, who's taking less in money from revenue sharing from the conference. And you're just like, man, I miss those days in the MAC at that point. And we all love the MAC, and I love MAC still. Tuesday night, I love the MAC. But it gives you kind of a feel of the Sun Belt with that now because of geographic. You have Appy State. I see trash talking all the time on Twitter right now with Marshall and Appy State fans. It's great. It's fantastic for college football. That's what we've been missing so much with this, with expansions and teams going different geographically ways for money. And I think it's fantastic. It gives you just a little taste. It's not as great with, the Ohios of the world. And obviously Marshall's kept them on their schedule, but I think that moved the Sun Belt because of that as well. And we've been missing that so much in college football. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, and you guys make a good point. And this day and time, guys, with who knows what's going to happen with realignment, I think it's more important. And watching the Backyard Brawl Thursday, I think it's more important to play those teams that are closer to you. It just makes sense. Sure. Look what the Big Ten's going to do. Rutgers has to go out to USC to play volleyball. There's not the madness. Someone's got to stop the madness. So I agree. The more you can be with like-minded schools and similar programs, I think the better off you are.
Yeah.
Just me.
Absolutely.
Well, we left Marshall off of the pick of this week. I think I'm with you. I think the other guys probably are. We're not expecting too
Yeah.
much trouble for the herd. So
Right.
I'm never one to make it easy on our pickers. So we're going to pick some tougher games than that.
Yeah.
And let's get started. I tell you what, I'm going to move the brawl down to the end. We'll end with the brawl. We'll get there.
Okay.
So let's
I was
start with-
hoping.
let's start with this one.
That's the hardest one to pick, by the way. The brawl.
Yes,
So
it
go
is.
ahead.
It is.
It might be, but this one was tough. I don't know. This one's pretty tough too. Let's have some more Big Ten games to start the season. By the way, thank you, Big Ten. I love this. Let's have some pivotal conference matchups right out of the gate.
Keep going. Keep loving
Yeah.
it. Go ahead.
I
Keep
think
going.
this one's a good one. Penn State, a 3.5 point favorite on the road at Purdue. Penn State leads this series, guys, 15-3-1 since they joined the Big Ten there. The last time Purdue won a game in this series was 2004. Jack Withrow, do they break the streak at 18 years this year?
I'm going to say they do.
Okay, yeah, that's
at
what we're here.
home, and we've talked about Penn State and their struggles early in the year sometimes. So I'm hoping Penn State struggles this weekend at Purdue. So I'm going with the Boilermakers. Let's end that streak.
Yeah, there you go, Keith.
Jack, I finally get out of your rearview mirror, Jack. I've been
This is why I
following you.
did it.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost a pick. And Purdue's quarterback O'Connell's pretty good. I guess he threw for 3,700 yards last year. But Penn State, they've got Clifford back. I have no scientific evidence or empirical data to throw at you. I just think Penn State has Purdue's number. And when it gets down to the line, I think Penn State will make a play and win the game.
There you go, Brandon.
I'm agreeing with Jack. I think, and you, Ryan, and I mean, we talked about Coach Franklin's struggles with top 25 opponents, but they are so. And my stepdad, his mom was a professor at Penn State, so my stepdad's a big Penn State fan. I've seen so many Penn State games. I've kind of devoured that Penn State product for a while, and it seems like Penn State, that slow period. And they usually get it like in the middle, and then they end up dropping off. And then there's top 25 games against like Ohio State, and they drop those off. But Purdue was so good last year at home. So good. And they pushed so many good teams to the brink. Now, obviously, they fell off. And Ryan, we fell in love with them. I don't remember last year. We fell in love with them early in the year. We're like, Purdue at home. I mean, they're not, they're a bowl team. They're amazing. So I like the quarterback coming back, like he said. The Vegas tells us a lot. I understand that Vegas sometimes puts these bets in there where you're like, is this a setup to get us? But I like Purdue. I'm going Purdue. I think they pull it off.
Over a beer after the third round of the West Virginia Amateur this year, Jonathan Clark told me that Penn State would win the next 11 national championships in a row.
That was over more than one beer.
I'm not going to include the number. Maybe it was. No, he didn't say that, but he probably did. But Purdue's a good team. I think they get lost a little bit with Michigan State and Iowa and some good teams from the Big Ten last year. You forget that they beat both of them.
Yes.
And at home. But I'm not sure that Penn State's not the second best team in the Big Ten this year, period. So I'm with Keith. I think Penn State goes on the road and they make a play late and win a close game. Stay in the Big Ten here. Illinois at Indiana. The Hoosiers are 3.5 point favorites at home. This is the first time they've played since 2017. Illinois leads the series 45-24-2, but has not won in the series since October 8, 2011. Jack, are we still snapping streaks here in the Big Ten?
Not so fast.
I'm sorry.
Did you fall asleep over there?
I had to wake up on this one.
Yeah.
This does nothing for me. Illinois and Indiana. I'll go Indiana.
Okay.
I'm sorry I fell asleep on that one.
This is a little Rust Belt problems over there. Go ahead.
That was going to be the first time anyone abstained from voting, I thought.
Well, he's got a 2-game lead. He can afford to.
That's true. That's true. He can sit on one. Illinois 2-5 in their last 7 road games. Hoosiers win this one in Bloomington.
Brandon.
Not so fast. I like Illinois. Ryan sold me on him. I think that finally they got something going on there. I know the coach is really high up on this team again. I know Coach Beat goes a long way for delirious fans, but Indiana being a 3.5, they've lost some players. If this was 2 years ago, I would never pick Illinois, but I like Illinois in this game.
Yeah, I think Illinois is a bowl team. I think Brett Bielema is doing a good job there.
Yes.
I think they win this game. I think it's a big statement right out of the top. So I'm glad I could talk you into that, Brandon, and take you down with me when this move on to a game that has never been played before. The first matchup here between these two, and for my money, the most mysterious team in the Big 12, TCU, on the road at Colorado, and still a 10.5-point favorites. Guys, I did some research here. Colorado has been to a bowl game twice since 2008, and the last time they won a bowl game was in 2004. Now, I'm not asking you to pick that, Jack, but do they have any magic at home here against the Horned Frogs?
Great mascot, one of the best in college football.
Unless you're standing in front of them.
Yeah, or being drugged behind him.
Yeah, either way.
But I mean, Colorado is a a pristine place to play, but I'm going with the Horned Frogs on this one.
Yeah, this is I agree with Jack. This is not Chris Fowler's Colorado Buffaloes. They just haven't done anything for a long time. I think TCU's defense is better, and I think the Horned Frogs win it.
Yeah, it's obviously interesting. TCU with a new head coach. 10.5 though. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't take 10.5. Mm-hmm. I know we don't do spreads, but I ain't taking 10.5.
Yeah.
But I think that's too big of a spread. But I do think TCU gets it done. Colorado was in the Pac-12 championship a couple years ago, and then obviously lost it, I believe. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right.
A couple years ago. Okay, so and Boulder, as we know, is if you're a W fan, I don't know if you remember when Pat White, those guys rolled up in there thinking they're going to win, and that was not what happened. So it's always a tough place to play. But spread-wise, if we were calling spreads, if I was, I would go that realm of TCU as far as like Colorado covering. But TCU will get the victory.
Yeah, I agree. Quentin Johnson is arguably one of the 2 or 3 best receivers in the Big 12. And on a team that's largely unknowns, Max Duggan's there, but you got new coach. It's just a weird team. This is a team that could go 9-3 or 3-9, and I wouldn't be really surprised either way. But I do think they win this game. So we'll move on to the game. I will be watching whenever it's on, as Brandon can tell you, Keith. If triple options being run, I'm there and I'm watching.
I'm jacked for this game.
Yeah, this game is really, really fun. We talked about a little bit about the Sun Belt there earlier. One of its powers is going to get tested at home right out of the gate here. Army coming into Coastal Carolina. Coastal is a 2.5-point favorite at home. This is the first meeting between these two teams. Coastal 22-3 in the last 2 years, by the way. Army's 18-7 over that same span, and I would argue against some tougher non-conference competition as well. So both these programs in good shape. Jack, who's taking this one, man?
I got Coastal Carolina at home. It's not a big. I mean, like you guys said, this is one to watch. But I'm going with the Chanticleers. Is that how you say it? Or you just go to Chance? For short.
All right, Keith.
Jack, I share your optimism. Although Army, I mean, you know what, they can torture anybody. They get that run game going.
If Coastal, they do that.
Yeah, and Coastal has 2-time Player of the Year Grayson McCall back at quarterback. Although I think they lost some of their bigger pieces, but he's awfully talented. So I'm going with Coastal Carolina in the Myrtle Beach matchup as well.
Brandon,
not so fast, boys. I'm telling you, when I saw this, I was like, it's there, it's at their place. I get it. But we've seen these Army, like these schools that take on the Oklahomas, they control the clock and they run it, they confuse even these big Power 5 athlete programs, and it takes them a little bit to get acclimated. And then they take over, the talent takes over, the depth takes over, or whatever. But I really like this. I think it's going to be low scoring because of that. And I like this matchup so much for Army. I really do. And they've been so tough. And obviously, West Virginia fans are familiar with that. And I like Army. I think it's going to be a tough game. I understand the success out of Coastal Carolina, and I like the Coastal Carolina program so much. But I like Army. I really do. I like him to win this game.
Yeah, if God was an offensive coordinator, he'd run the triple option. The only offense on the planet when run right that cannot be stopped. I like Army. You know me. If it's triple option, I'm picking it. So Army on the road.
I just think up front too. I mean, up front it's going to be tough.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is a pretty big non-conference game here early season. The spread would indicate otherwise. Number 11 Oregon, a 17.5-point dog, no pun intended, at the defending national champion Georgia. Jack, you're not picking spreads here. Who's the winner?
Georgia's not at home though; they're in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, they're listed.
Well, I mean, it kind of is.
Yeah, that's like saying that the SEC teams aren't home teams.
Oregon's coming to Atlanta, Jack.
Right,
Come on, dude.
Yeah, come on.
This is the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic, I believe, in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And get the grills ready. They'll be hot because the Ducks will be on it. Dogs all day on this one.
Yeah, I can't. You got to beat the champion, and I don't see that Oregon has the horses to do that. Georgia's defense will smother them, and I'm going all dogs on this one.
Brandon.
Don't love the spread.
No.
17.5 is terrible. I think it's too. And again, we're not picking spreads, but it's terrible.
Right.
The thing Oregon's a 17.5 spread is just ridiculous. And obviously Oregon has been the darling of the Pac-12 for I don't know how many years because we keep ranking USC in the top 5 for no reason. Maybe this year we'll change their minds. Obviously, Lincoln Riley there, but Oregon's carried the torch for I don't know how long. Yeah. The recruiting, the talent, offensively, this defense. Obviously, Georgia's bringing back obviously some talent. They got depth. Kirby Smart's got it going on. I talked to obviously Ryan. I've talked about this on the show where it's an interesting dynamic. NFL is going offense, college football a lot's going defense, and that wasn't the same 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So I think Georgia ultimately gets the win, but I think Oregon scares them a little bit. Also, we're talking the first game of the season. So, guys are planning, and I do think Georgia gets it done, but I don't think they cover.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Georgia by a touchdown, and I think Oregon leads most of this game. I think it's some late magic that gets Georgia, and I think really low scoring. I don't trust Georgia's offense enough right now.
No.
Here's speaking of perennial powers, Cincinnati, an underdog on the road at number 19.
Hey Ryan, are you going to pick any of these games?
I did pick.
Oh,
he's been picking them.
Okay,
yeah, he picked Georgia.
I said Georgia, but by a touchdown.
He agreed with me on the spread. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
No, I'm not going to. I'm just going to say that I picked the winners after.
You got to watch you.
Yeah, that's true. Cincinnati on the road at number 19, Arkansas. The Razorbacks a 6-point favorite at home. We don't need to talk much about Cincinnati. We all know what they've been. A huge turnover year, obviously. These are the kind of years that prove you're a program and not a flash in the pan. And a win at Arkansas would go a long way to proving that. So, Jack, do the Bear Kitties get it done?
I'm with the Bearcats on this one on the upset.
All right.
I like that. That's gutsy, Jack. Desmond Ridder doesn't play there anymore, and Arkansas have a SEC environment down there. I'm going with Arkansas to win it at home, get the upset, or not an upset. They're favored.
Yeah.
Arkansas.
Brandon.
As much as Arkansas fans are one of the worst fan bases in the country, I'm gonna go Arkansas. I agree with Keith. When your guy who's been your quarterback has led you, has had Heisman hype, there's a complete overhaul with a lot of positions with Cincinnati. Now, I think Cincinnati still has a bowl year. I think Luke Fickell has something going there. And watch out when they join the Big 12 because their recruiting, as W fans will note, will go up. And they're going to hit the transfer portal, and they're going to have – so the future looks bright. But for the first game of the season, going down to Arkansas – I do think it's a tough game, though. I don't think Arkansas runs away with it. Maybe in the end, maybe they win by double digits. But with so much overhaul with personnel and all, I just think Arkansas takes it.
I'm with Jack. I think Cincinnati's got something to prove in this game. Luke Fickell's done a lot of work in the recruiting circles, and he is too good of a coach just to let this program fall apart. It's not that I think Arkansas is a bad team. This is a chance for Cincinnati to make a statement, and I think they do, man. I think Cincinnati's here to stay. That program's not going anywhere. This one's a fun one here. Number 7, Utah, a 2.5-point favorite in the swamp against Florida. Speaking of a chance to make a statement, Jack Withrow, what kind of statement gets made in this game?
Utah is still mad about losing to Ohio State last year. Their quarterback is back, and so just with those two right there, they've got a bad taste in their mouth, and they're going to take it out on the Gators in the swamp. I'm going with Utah.
I like that, Jack. Florida has won, by the way, 32 straight home openers. So there's that. But Billy Napier's the new coach. He came over from Louisiana. Of course, I saw him in the New Orleans Bowl last year when they beat Marshall. And I just feel like the same thing. I think Utah's going to go in there. And if you can come out of Florida with a win, that's a pretty good day. So I'm going with the Utes.
Did you say Utes?
Uh-huh.
Yes. It's because of Vinny reference. Keith, I'd like to know how
2 movies I've watched in my lifetime.
Keith, I'd like to know how many of those were Power 5 programs.
Oh, I know. I'm not. Yeah, that's
but yeah,
empirical data, right?
Yeah. But no, we had Tim Brando on. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and I brought Utah up because he had him in his top 5. And Ryan watched the Rose Bowl against Ohio State, which they should have won that game, every bit of it. And obviously Ohio State came on, they won it, and Utah was winning the whole game. And I didn't give them enough credit because I talked about Oregon being the darling of the Pac-12, and obviously that has success. A lot of people forget about Utah. And I think Utah has been as successful, and I don't know if it's geographically or just don't get the national coverage, and we get the Pac-12 after dark. We're on the East Coast, and we just fall asleep against a program like Utah. So I really think Utah is a sleeper for even a playoff appearance, in my opinion. So I think the 2.5 is a slap in the face. I think they come in the swamp and they smack Florida in the face. And if you're a betting person, put all the money down on Utah to cover.
I'll go a step further. I think Utah is a playoff team.
Yes.
I'll say that right now. I think they win the Pac-12 and they make the playoff, and it starts here. I like this Utah team. This is a huge one in the top 5. Number 5, Notre Dame. Number 2, Ohio State. Speaking of slap in the face spreads, 17-point favorite are the Buckeyes. Here's a little fun fact, guys. The last time Notre Dame beat Ohio State, Halloween 1936. The Irish handled the Buckeyes 7-2 in 1936. Ohio State's won the last 4. They've only met 6 times. Jack,
I remember that night.
That was right before you built Oaks Field.
Yeah.
Jack, do the Irish have any magic in them? It's going to take a lot, right, in the horseshoe?
Nobody's going to be dancing for Notre Dame. How are you the number 5 rated team in the nation, and you're a 17-point dog? And I know it's number 2, Ohio State, but either Notre Dame, again, is rated too high, or that's that big of a drop-off after the top 4 teams. But all day Ohio State on this one.
Yeah, I got to agree. Notre Dame, I do think they're slightly overrated. Maybe it should be 10 or so, but brand new quarterback coming in for them. And, the Buckeyes, my goodness, Stroud, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Travion Henderson at tailback, their defense is stout. I don't particularly think this will be close. I think Ohio State rolls.
Should I just? What do you know?
Yeah, I got you. Never mind. Notre Dame.
No. No. I will say this. The point spread's too much, and I might eat those words. I agree with Ryan. It's too much. Sophomore quarterback coming in for Notre Dame, obviously in the shoe, 100,000 people, primetime TV. I agree with both the boys. Shouldn't be top 5. But Ohio State, that offense, best in the country. They bring over defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State, who's just been great there for years, and we hope that he can make a difference there because that defense is one of the worst I've seen in a long time, especially early in the season. So, but the spreads is too much. This game's got too much pressure on it. It's first game of the season. I feel like if this was like the 3rd game of the season, we got a little bit of a feel for both teams, then maybe we can be like, okay, this is a spread. But I think an opening spread for first game of the season with 2 perennial powers, I think that's too much. But I'm taking the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I picked Ohio State, or I voted Ohio State number one. I think this might be one of the best offenses in the history of college football. It's got that kind of potential.
It's going to be big.
When you have that, it's tough to bet against. So I'll take the Buckeyes too.
You got your Ohio State shirt on there, Brandon?
Yep. Check.
That was the one in the rotation today. Here's an interesting one. ACC, SEC battle. Florida State, who I believe is the only team that we're picking this week that has played already.
Yeah, they beat the mighty Duquesne.
Hey, let me tell you something. As someone who's followed Florida State football the last few years, that was a big win because they have not gone that way.
That is a
often.
big win. That really is, though. That really
47-7 over the Dukes. They're a little tougher test, we think, this week. LSU, a 3-point favorite over the Seminoles. Jack Withrow. What we got?
Have you ever been to Louisiana State football game on a Saturday night?
I have not.
You need to go. It's awesome. Go Tigers.
It's go Tigers.
Florida State beat Tim Muir's alma mater, the Duquesne Dukes. God bless them. And a little known fact, Tim and I and a couple of guys from work covering the Marshall Pitt game a few years ago stopped on the Duquesne field and took a look around as we were walking for an Uber that night. So we kind of felt close to them, but the Dukes, they're not going to hang with Florida State. But I don't think Florida State can beat LSU. LSU wins.
Brandon.
If this was in Tallahassee, I like the spread just because Tallahassee is crazy too, and you just never know what's going to happen. I think LSU's been obviously, I don't know what their home record is, but it's ridiculous. Even last year when their head coach was trying to get dates from the board members, yoga instructor, whatever that was. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with LSU here just because they're at home. But if it was Tallahassee, I like that spread though.
I like the fact that Florida State's played a game. I think it's a big deal.
I like that too.
They're in their second game week and a little bit of a routine here. I know LSU is a tough place to play, but LSU struggled a little bit. A lot of turmoil within the program. I think Florida State goes on the road and gets the biggest win they've gotten in a decade. How about that?
Wow, I like it.
Nice.
I like it. I like it.
And finally, there's this little thing that we have on Thursday night. I don't know if you've heard about
What's happening?
Yeah. So for the
they're
first
doing trick or treat early.
First time in 11 years, we're backyard brawling, and it's a primetime game. Game days there, we all know. Pittsburgh, a 7-point favorite at newly minted Acrisure Stadium. See how many times I messed that up in print this week. Jack, what are we thinking?
A lot of new things for W, especially on that defense. Pitt's defense, however, is not new. They've been around. Especially that defensive line, man, they are tough. If W can't run against that defensive line, it's going to be a long day. My heart says W, but I got to go with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Jack. This one really was. You could look at about 8 different scenarios where either team wins, both with new transfer quarterbacks from big time programs. Again, you mentioned Pitt's defensive line, the second in the nation in sacks last year, so that could be problematic. West Virginia's offensive line is older, and so like you say, theoretically, if they can run the ball, they can get JT Daniels some time, and he can, Sam James can get open because Pitt's secondary isn't that great. So I went all through and about this, and I think West Virginia covers, but I think Pitt wins at 31-27, close.
Brandon. I agree with both the boys. It's the whole cliche. It starts up front. I agree with some of that aspect. I think Pitt's up front. It's all going to come down to those experienced offensive linemen of West Virginia. Ryan has been beaten at, the offensive line. But I think the biggest difference, you heard Neil Brown, and everybody's like, oh, the biggest surprise. Oh, it's a big surprise JT Daniels is starting because you transferred in. But I like what Neil said, and it could have been a political answer. Who knows? But he said his decision-making. As much as Ryan and I have talked about Jared Dagian, and we didn't hammer him as much as everybody did, but there was a lot of times where he held onto the ball a little too long. And that happens. He just didn't go through his progressions. It was a coverage sack. But I think JT Daniels, as long as he stays healthy throughout the season, can be special for this offense. As long as the offensive line does this. I mean, they got to play very well in this first game because of Pitt's, up front. They've been dominant. The biggest thing, like you said, is secondary. And I think Graham Harrell's very smart in the realm of knowing that he's going to have to get the ball quick. If he sees it, the in-game adjustments are going to have to be huge. If he sees that they're getting pressure, he's going to have to get the ball quick. And then, as you've seen, Ryan, he's very good at that. And that air raid offense, he takes advantage. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think Reese Smith has a huge game out of the slot position. I think he comes in. I think he has a couple because of that pressure, might get there early. And I think that's the biggest difference. And I think West Virginia's up front, and we talked to Phil Steele. If guys would have stayed there, obviously they would have been top 5 in the country. But I still think that's a very good front. And I think because that up there could disrupt the passing game. I think it's a very close game. I don't think there's any blowouts. But I think West Virginia just does just enough in some of those aspects that I mentioned. I think the leadership of JT Daniels shows up in that first game, and I think they squeak out a win.
You're taking West Virginia.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm taking Pittsburgh, and the defensive front is why. If you look at the things that WU struggled with last year, it was pass protection and running the football. If you look at Pitt's defense last year, they were 3rd in the country in sacks and 6th in the country in rush defense. I think this West Virginia offensive line's better, but I think this is the toughest matchup they have all year right out of the gate. I think it takes a week or two for everyone to settle in, and I think Pitt nicks them right here, right now. So that concludes it, guys. That's it for our pick'em. Good luck to everyone, and thanks for hanging out for what's turned into a 2-hour marathon. We need to streamline this a little bit next time, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Keith, thank you again for coming on, man. It's been a blast having you here, and I echo the sentiments that Brandon said in the beginning of the show. You know, I remember rushing home every Friday night to watch you on Friday nights when I was a kid, seeing scores, trying to figure out who Sissonville was playing the next week when I was 10 years old. And yeah, just thanks for coming on, man. It's been cool, and thanks for hanging.
Well, thanks, man. All these years later, it's still fun. Friday nights, Saturday nights, it's a blast. So enjoy doing it. Thanks, guys, for having me, and have a great football season.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Soon.
All right,
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, boys. One final shout to the tent guy here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you to our sponsor, the Tent Guy, over there on off 25 and Nitro. It's a quarter mile from that St. Albans Nitro Bridge. Give him a call, John Wheeler, 304-380-2935. Again, 380-2935. And yeah, we appreciate his business. And make sure you get over there over at Nitro, again, off Michigan Avenue, right there by the bridge. So thank you again to Keith Morehouse. Awesome stuff. Always been good to me, as Ryan said. Always been, hard worker. Sports director out there, WSAZ, out in the field, just kicking ass, at all these, games, high school games, college football games. So excited for the football season. And I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. For the Brandon Lowe Show with Ryan Pritt.